All right, but hey, yo, the link's in the side. You're like, I've been like sitting here just talking for a few minutes, waiting to see, boop, boop, waiting to see old captive desk and what's his face, the other Christian brother in the chat pop up here. But I mean, where you at? 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 Come on. There he is.
I'm here.
What's
Can you
up?
hear me okay?
I can hear you just fine.
All right, great.
Okay. All right. Let me turn my banners on just so I can get. There we go. All right. Cool. So, what did you want to talk about? I'm assuming it's probably most likely from the other day when we did that debate review.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for inviting me on.
Absolutely.
And can I get your permission to repost this on my channel later?
Absolutely. Yes. And actually, you just reminded me that my background is not correct. I have to change my background to my hot seat background. There we go. Bam.
Okay. So thank you. And I just wanted to say that you and I are not that far apart in the first place. You know, I'm an old guy, and I know you've been around. You've heard them all. You know, I'm not going to here to waste your time rehashing all the arguments you and I both know very well. And I also, you know, you and I examine things the same way. I've seen your videos. People bring up claims, and you say, well, I would have to see, you know, some kind of a demonstrable evidence, you know, it doesn't have to be with your own eyes, etc. You know, and I understand, and I agree with you on all that stuff. So, you know, yeah, if I came across in the chat, you know, all hostile or anything, yeah, I didn't mean to or anything. I was just throwing some critiques out, you know.
No, you're good, brother. You're good.
All right.
Yeah, I've noticed that typically when in the chat or when I'm interacting with the chat, things tend to be a little bit more like chest in your face.
Right. Yeah.
And things can, you know, you can't really get the context of how somebody's saying something just from reading some words on a screen.
Right.
So
That's
why I was like, hey, come on up. Let's have the discussion up here. So let's
that's
get
why I
into
wanted to clear that out, you know, right off, you know what I mean? Yeah. So, I mean, my biggest thing was I just wanted to ask you a couple questions about what Muhammad Hijab was saying.
Sure.
And if I just ask you a couple questions, and if you wanted to ask me something or whatever, you know, I'm cool with that too, or whatever.
Go ahead.
So I got a couple notes because I wanted to make sure I had it right. Well, he started out with saying magic. He's going to talk about magic. This is his opening presentation at the debate. I don't know, is his name Muhammad Hijab, or is that
Muhammad Hijab? Or... No, that's his actual name. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool. I just wanted to make sure. Didn't want to disrespect the guy or anything.
No.
And I also agreed with you that him and Alex should have done the debate by themselves. You know, the other two guys were kind of, you know, so we agreed there that definitely maybe, you know. I was agreeing with you a lot. So
I feel like as if the older gentleman on the atheist side would have been much better with a Corona in his hand, sitting on Long Island Beach, you know, just chilling.
Sure.
You know,
Well, that's why I said
let the youngsters get at it.
Yeah, that's why I said in the chat. You know, Alex probably just needed somebody, and he was, you know, a colleague or something. He just, you know, agreed to do it. It's all good. You know what I mean? I wasn't trying to be too hard on the guy because he said right at the beginning, you know, he was out of his league, you know, in his intro, and that, you know, he was just there to ask a couple questions, and so anyway, but
in the middle of the debate, he said, "I'm not a debater," and I'm sitting here like, "Why are you up there then? Why are you? This is a debate."
Because well, Alex and I say I didn't know who the other guy was, but I know Muhammad Hijab gets around, so I mean, I know who he is, so I would have just.
He's pretty big too.
Right. Okay. So so like I say, we're cool on all that. But he brings up the something from nothing argument.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, and I have a problem with that because what do you define nothing as? You know what I mean?
So were you there for that, right? Did you hear what I said?
I believe so. Yeah. Like I say, I was agreeing with you a lot.
Yeah, so during that part, I said I do not think that I've ever heard any atheist make the argument that something can come from a philosophical nothing.
Right.
That Lawrence Krauss in his Lawrence Krauss in his book Universe from Nothing.
I have that book.
He talks about, I've read it. I've read it also. In that book, he talks about this nothing being like a low-level static state, right? So it's not an absolute nothing.
Right.
It's actually something that it would come from.
Exactly.
So I made that clear, is I don't think that when Muslims and Christians and other theists say, well, atheists think that something comes from something. I'm like, can you bring me one person that's ever actually said that?
See, we agree again. So, hey, cool, my brother. All right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wanted to ask you too. And if, you do a lot of philosophical arguments and everything and stuff. If we did define nothing, wouldn't it then be something?
Exactly. Yeah. How do you provide positive attributes to non-existence?
Right.
You can't logically do that.
So right off the bat, I had a problem with throwing these things out that I think are just terrible, and you say you agree. So okay, all right, cool. And that was my question. Yeah, who says that? Now, granted, they'll bring up, well, Lawrence Krauss has a book that says nothing, but you already know that he explains what a nothing actually is. So just open the book and he explains it. So
now it was interesting because when Alex Connor, Cosmic Skeptic, once he actually brought this up and responded to it in the debate, he says, well, although that's not my position, it's still possible for something to come from nothing. We can't say that it absolutely can't.
Yeah, no, nothing's 100%. There's always anything's possible. It might be a 99.9, but I would never say 100%.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, I found that interesting though. Is that it was almost like he was on the logical side of saying no, that's not my position, but leaving that little sliver of space to be like, if I need to go that route, here's my door. Here's the door that I can use. So I mean, I feel like it was a strategic maneuver, which is smart. I don't necessarily think that if pressed on the logical possibility of something coming from nothing, diving into that, I think we might find some problems. But I'm glad we agree on that question. What's your next question?
Okay, let's see. To go down the list. Again, we agree that no one's ever demonstrated that the universe came from anything or it came from nothing. You know what I mean? A lot of the hypotheses are not from nothing. They have many different ideas, but I don't know any of them, any of the leading physicists at least, that say, oh yeah, there was just nothing and then there was the universe. They have a much more complicated explanation than that. And then he presses the argument, and this is another one I would ask you about, is when he presses Alex to explain how the universe came to be. Well, why does Alex have to, explain that? You know what I mean? I get asked that question too. If I say, well, I don't believe in God, they'll say, well, where did the universe come from? Well, I don't know. You know what I mean? So, that's physicists work on that. You know what I mean? And I'm in the position where I'm going to wait, till they have some answers, at least some answers. They really don't have any answers.
But
so
isn't
really
it
not anything?
Isn't it the case that people build ideas, and then from ideas they gather evidence, and those ideas turn into a hypothesis? I think that's what they're saying. Like, what might your position be? Although we cannot demonstrate as of right now what the universe came from, if the universe came from, right? But like, from your model, if you have a non-God model, has the universe always been? Did it come from a multiverse theory? Like, did it emerge from a previous or other, universe? That's the question that's being asked, is like, what's your model? If you reject that there is this necessary thing called God that created everything and everything emerged from that God.
Again, not 100%, not 100%.
I agree with you.
I'll give you, I'm not saying 100%, but, just the idea of the question that I or Alex is not a physicist, and I'm in the position of, well, ask a physicist. You know what I mean? So I don't think that it's fair just to throw really big, where did the universe come from? Where did the life come from? The big questions, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
As somebody that's not even in that field, you know what I mean? At least get somebody up there that's a Lawrence Krauss or a Dawkins or somebody that's in a related field that can at least answer the questions. You know what I'm saying?
What do you believe that these questions can also be metaphysical?
Possibly.
Okay.
If
So if it's metaphysical,
if it can be demonstrated, that's like you like to say. If there's a way to demonstrate it, then
in one of those ways to demonstrate it, if it's a metaphysical discussion, then you can provide logical, valid, and sound argumentation. Which I would agree. I would say that I know that Hijab has a degree in philosophy, and I think O'Connor, I think he has a degree in philosophy also. So this actually
working on it,
yeah. These questions of like on a metaphysical level, like what is your position or model on where you think it's reasonable to believe metaphysically where the universe came from or if it emerged? These are philosophical questions that you can't ask without having to go straight into, well, let's get a cosmologist or a astrophysicist up here to answer these questions on a cosmological level. So yeah, that's why I think he was asking it.
Okay, yeah. Well, I my argument why I was making comments is that these are things people will throw at me.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? I'm a former technician. I'm not a physicist. I've always loved science and I like following science.
Technician as in like a automobile?
I was auto mechanic and I was also an FST.
Cool.
Field service technician. Yeah. I worked on stamping press calibrations. I worked on mills and lathes, and I'm just naturally good with fixing stuff. So
nice. Jack of all trades, master of none.
Yep.
That's kind of what I did in the military. I've done diesel mechanics, auto mechanics, worked for dealerships. I've ran full service shops before as manager, general manager of the store. I've done generators, heating, cooling, you name it, radar systems, all kinds of stuff. So yeah, I get what you're saying. That's cool.
I learned how to do my furnace.
Okay. Yeah, it's not hard.
I put a new brain. I put a new brain in it and everything. Yep.
New control board.
New control board and everything.
Nice.
Yeah. So like I said, again, we agree on a lot of these things. So I just wanted to get your point of view on some of them.
Sure.
Let's see what else. Like I say, we agree so much. Most of my notes are becoming irrelevant. Okay. Well, let me just let's see. Beginning. All right. Well, then he presented his. I wanted to ask you about his falsification argument that he presented.
Okay. Yeah. Remind me what he said.
Okay. Well, first of all, he said that he had 4 of them, and he only said 3. So I don't know if I lost the 4th one in the 3rd one somewhere, or if he just got distracted because I think he was running out of time. But he said number 1 would be if you could find contradictions in the Quran, it would disprove Islam.
Correct.
Okay. So you agree with that one?
Absolutely.
Okay. Number 2, produce something like the Quran. So in other words, a holy book with words from God, or I wasn't too clear.
So yeah,
there's exactly what his argument is there.
It's mapped out in the Quran on exactly what it would be like to write something like this. It would have to be a book that claims to be from God, a book free of contradiction, a book that when recited has a certain tone to it. So for example, if you were to put music into like an audio calibration system, you can see like the sound waves on like they got the scales or graphs. I don't exactly know what they're called, but like when you listen to regular music, it like stuff's bouncing all around. And when you play like recitations of the Quran, it's almost like it doesn't move. It's just this one straight line, and it like bulges out like just a tiny bit.
Is that like an ohm?
I think it's like an ohm meter or something like that.
No, like an AUM ohm.
I'm not familiar with that.
Primal sounds that they chant in like Buddhism and yeah,
I think it might have something to do with that. On certain frequencies, I think
certain resonances and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
So when this is
that.
there's a bunch of different criteria that's laid out in Quran and Sunnah on how exactly it would what would be the requirements to make a book like this one. Like this, these are the things that this book does. This is what you would have to recreate. So and that's why for 1400 years it has not been met, because it's very hard to meet all these requirements.
Okay, but do you think it would be possible for somebody to do it?
No, that's the whole point.
So you think that's a 100%?
I do not think that this Quran could possibly have come from human beings.
So it's a 100%, or you're not at a 99?
Yeah, I think it's a challenge. I think it's a challenge that Allah is pointing out is challenging non-Muslims with, because he knows they will never ever possibly be able to do it. It's the point of, you think it's from man, then show me you can do it. You're not going to be able to, and when you can't, come to Islam.
Okay. I just wanted to be clear where your point was on.
Sure. Yep.
Okay, and then number 3 is future predictions, and that every prediction in the Quran has come true. If not, again, Islam is falsified.
I don't know if he said everyone has come true, because I still think there are prophecies that
to the present, to the present.
Anything that's been made, like prophecies that have been made that would have come true. Yes.
Okay.
Now, I wouldn't say that alone proves anything, because there's prophecies in the Bible. The Euphrates River is drying up. Sure, cool. Does that make it true?
Yeah.
No. But if there was to be a claim in the Quran and it would be false, it would be a false claim and be demonstrated to be wrong within Islam, like one single mistake in this book, and bro, I'm done. I'm gone. Mm-hmm. I am out of Islam. Like, I'm gone if there's a mistake in this book.
Okay. Well, my only question on that would be then, how long after Muhammad died was the Quran penned? Because you can get
like
scholars
it was written down.
There's a 50-year gap in there.
No. These things were literally written down right after he recited them to his companions.
But I mean,
so it was like almost instantaneous. It was written down during his life. We have,
but I mean, an assembled Quran though. When
it was compiled.
Yeah.
Okay, so you said when it was penned.
Well, I meant as the book. Yeah.
Oh, as the book. Okay, so they were gathered. It was already gathered. All of them were gathered together. So the entire Quran was gathered together. When it was compiled, that means that it was put into a very specific order. So basically, the pages were just switched around, because it's not as if the very first chapter of the book all the way through the last chapter is from his first revelation all the way through the 23 years to his last. Like the first revelation that he gets is in the middle of the book. The last revelation that he gets is towards the end of the book, but not at the end of the book. So the compilation was there, just it compiled in the state that it's at right here. I think that happened with, I believe that was with Uthman. I'm not 100% sure. I have to get back with you on that. But I think Uthman, the third caliph, was when the actual Quran was figured out. This is how we're going to have it compiled and use it.
Right. Well, as a skeptic, I would say that there could be time in there that some of these prophecies could have been put in, you know what I mean, before or after Muhammad died, but before the book was actually in a form where everybody could check it out and say, hey, wait a minute.
That would be the case that would be the case if we did not have the Birmingham manuscripts and other manuscripts of these prophecies and things being written down, carbon dated back to the lifetime of the prophet himself. Okay. So we actually have unlike Christianity, we have our original manuscripts. We have the originals. Christianity, the earliest they got for the New Testament is P52, which came, 50 to 70 years, written after the death of Christ.
So your argument is that there's no gap in there.
No, there's no
None
possibility
whatsoever.
of a gap. No.
Okay.
And we also have a chain of narration going back all the way through all the writings, all the generations, all the different people who wrote the Quran, right, or who like actually penned it, going all the way back to the Prophet himself. And then you check all the way from that Birmingham manuscript, and then you compare that to a Quran today. Every single word is exactly the same.
Right. I'm just talking about, you've got different people that say different gaps between when he died and when the book was put together. And I'm just saying, as a skeptic, I'm going to say, well, they could have filled in blanks after they happened. You know what I mean?
Sure, yeah, but we have to make a difference between it being written and it being compiled. If it's just compiled, that means everything is already written, and we can carbon date all that writing back to a specific time or a general range between years. And if we can do that with the entire Quran, that means that if we can carbon date all this stuff back all the way back to the lifetime of the Prophet, it wasn't as if we could say, well, it wasn't there then, and then 30 years later after he died, it was added right here. Like we don't have that type of problem, and I know that that's abundant in Christianity, and I think that's a good point for you to bring up.
Well, it's across the board. I mean, anybody that claims to have prophecies, any time that there's a gray area there, you could say, well, of course they already knew it happened, and then they wrote it down.
Correct.
That's like me predicting Kennedy was going to be assassinated. Well, good for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but so the let's see. Oh, and then so as far as prophecies go, going through, I looked up as many prophecies as I could that are in the Quran.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say that when I am reading them, I don't think that they give very clear predictions. Mm-hmm. I think they read like Bible predictions and other predictions that leave a lot of room. And there's been a lot of different times since 1,500 years ago where somebody says, "Aha," you know what I mean? There's the prophecy in the Quran. Mm-hmm. And then so many years later, somebody said, "Well, aha, there's the prophecy in the Quran." So, do you think they're exactly, or that they're very specific, or do you think there's some issues with the vagueness of them?
What I'd like to do is I'd like for my brother Fareed here. Fareed responds. He's amazing at this. MashaAllah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, brother Fareed. Thank you for showing up at 3
How you doing?
How you doing, Dave? Dave was able to get me on here when Khalil failed to. So I gotta thank you, and Dave's gotta thank you too, bro.
All right.
Yeah, it's like 15 minutes to 4, but I just had to share my 2 cents on this. Dave, in regards to a prophecy being added during the time of Uthman, that wouldn't really work because like Ibn Mas'ud's recitation predates the canonization of the Uthmanic Mus'haf. So you have different Muslims in different regions. They're all reciting things about these prophecies before the actual compilation of the Uthmanic Mus'haf. So that's one important point to keep in mind. Apart from that, you would need to assume that the Medinan society that followed Muhammad, peace be upon him, from ever since he entered Medina, and of course the Meccans that migrated to Medina with him, were just insincere, and that they tampered with the message and they added things into the Quran, and there's no reason to assume that happened. And if it did, that would be something that would have been held against Uthman. I'm sure that the Muslims wouldn't have accepted stuff like that being, stuff like that occurring. There was a committee of multiple prestigious members from society taking part in the compilation of the Quran. So I can't see something like that happening.
My position would be that it's a known thing that a lot of people are charlatans, or whatever word you want to use. I don't know. you know, and it's been proven through time that a lot of these people were just doing it to con people. And there was a lot of for in the religions too. Even religions will acknowledge there were false prophets.
Right.
You know, all through time, they said something, it didn't happen. Well, they were wrong, right? So, but
I understand.
I'm just saying that, yeah, I'm just going to say that, yeah, so I'm coming in saying you would have to have overwhelming evidence. You know what I mean? That would just overcompensate extremely for the fact that we know most of these people are, quote, palm readers. And, you know, like the palm reader that's in our town lives in a poor part of town. And I mean, you know what I mean? You'd think she would do a little better and live in a better part of town. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Dave, stick to my first point then. You have multiple companions of the Prophet, peace be upon him,
Right.
in different regions reciting it the same way. Their recitation predates the Uthmanic manuscript. That's it.
Are you talking just orally though?
Yeah, but they're all orally repeating the same prophecy.
Right, but there is a chance for human error though.
Yeah, but it's multiple people in different regions, and they're all reciting the same prophecy.
Sure.
If they all messed it up,
but
what are the chances of? Yeah, but
there is a possibility.
There's a possibility of one person messing it up. You can't have multiple people messing up the same thing and getting the same prophecy correct. Like,
you know what I'm saying?
Actually getting it wrong.
Are repeating the first guy. I mean, if everybody's repeating me and I'm wrong, you see what I'm saying?
They're all taking it from Muhammad, peace be upon him. That's the point. Like if you were to say that, you know, let's say Ibn Mas'ud messed up in Kufa.
Everybody's a first-hand account is what you're saying.
Yeah. So exactly. So if Ibn Mas'ud, let's say, for example, if Ibn Mas'ud messed up in Kufa, wait a second, Zayd bin Thabit was reciting it in Medina, and Abu Darda was reciting it in Sham, and they're all messing up. They're all saying that they're all attributing the same thing to Muhammad, peace be upon him. That would mean that they're actually getting it right.
They're repeating it right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and I think what Brother Fareed's point was is that if they all got it wrong, and they all messed up and got it wrong in the same way, what are the odds that they messed it up exactly the same? Like if they messed it up and all of their stuff was different, like the gospel stories, then sure, yeah, okay, got it. But how does one mess up and like misquote this or add this in, and all of them from different regions messing it up with the exact same words, reciting it in the exact same way? What's the odds of that?
Well, odds and probabilities are another poor argument, I think. So, I mean, especially
didn't you just provide what are the odds?
No, I'm just saying, especially because you guys believe in miracles, which are a one shot out of a bazillion, right? So.
Sure, kind of like the, you know,
maybe it was just a one big huge coincidence. I'm just saying it's possible it could be one big huge coincidence.
Yeah, what are the odds that the Big Bang Theory is true?
Did the Big Bang happen, or do they know everything to have a complete theory?
Yeah, or
they don't have a complete theory.
I'm not asking for a whole breakdown of it. I'm just trying to like provoke some thought. Like, what are the odds that abiogenesis is true? Or evolution by means of natural selection? Like, what are the odds that we came to be the way that we are today, and we didn't just stay bananas and share 95% DNA with them?
Well, when you start getting into the odds, and then you're talking about how many trillions of microscopic reactions are going on, it kind of brings the odds way down in my position.
Mm-hmm.
That's like with abiogenesis. The idea is, well, there was one little puddle and life formed there. But actually, you've got all these reactions going off all over the place, all over the seas they're going off. So you've got all kinds of things happening and then coming together. So I think, you know, I think, again, there's poor arguments made by apologists against abiogenesis and evolution when they misrepresent it.
Well, yeah, but no, what I'm saying, I don't think I've misrepresented it. I mean,
I didn't say you did. I just said,
okay. Gotcha.
I'm sorry. I'm just saying some apologists. My bad.
Sure. Yeah. I just think that, like, like when it comes to miracles and saying that that's a bad argument, because if we're going into odds and saying, okay, what are the odds of this? What are the odds of that? We can look at other naturalistic things like abiogenesis, evolution by means of natural selection, the theory of evolution. I want to make that clear distinction.
I can say life is a miracle. I can say life is a miracle.
Sure.
But I'm not.
So you believe in miracles too.
But I'm not invoking a deity type miracle or a supernatural.
Yeah, and that's.
I'm just talking about I hit the lottery. It's a miracle.
Yeah. Something is that seems intentional coming from a non-intentional thing.
Right.
Yeah. And that's why I would say that the theist actually has the more reasonable position to say that that once we get back to whatever this necessary thing was, and I'm not sure if you hold to a necessary being or not, but that's kind of like where it gets to, is that if you believe that there's this necessary thing, and there's nothing external from this necessary thing, if there's any changes that are made, it would necessarily have to come internal of that one thing that exists for the next thing to exist, which from all of our observation, the only thing that we can really say comes from internal is something willing something or intending, something to happen.
Well, I wanted to ask you real quick while your expert is still here, and thanks again for answering.
Absolutely.
What are some prophecies in the Quran that happen after today? Is there any way that, I got another about maybe 20 or so years on this earth, if I'm lucky. Is there anything that, in 5 years from now, we could have a stream and you could say, see, Dave, I told you so. And, and Dave, I got a pen in my hand right now. You know what I mean? Is there something I could write down that possibly could happen before,
most of the prophecies most of the prophecies found in the Quran are like limited to that time, in the sense that, well, I'm sure there are some things that will happen at the end of times. Nothing indicates a specific date from now. But most of
what I'm looking for is some kind of specifics, because otherwise I'm going to say they're vague enough that you could say
not at all. It's anything. You see, they're not vague. The thing is, a lot of the prophecies had to do, and they're like limited to a specific time. In the sense, I don't know if you're familiar with like some of the prophecies of Joseph Smith, where they're like limited to a specific time. In 2 years we're going to do this, in 3 years we're going to do this, and stuff like that. So like those are the most dangerous prophecies to make, because if they're open-ended, they're safer, right? But if they're limited to a specific time, that's where the danger really is. And so you have a bunch of stuff like that in the Quran, and things, of course, that do occur during the time of Muhammad, peace be upon him.
Yeah, that's where a lot of the Christian prophets got burned when they said Trump was going to be reelected. It didn't happen. I mean, it was very specific. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So then would we agree then that the prophecies, I'll even grant everything, before you today, but anything after today. And I ask Christians and other religious people or non-religious people that believe in different ways of psychic things or anything else, the same question: is there anything anywhere specific that could happen after today? That again, that, Dave, write this down right now. You know what I mean? And well, I'm pretty sure that in the next, so many decades, one of these things might actually come to
nothing
fruition.
Like that. Nothing like comes to mind that would like specify a date in that sense. No.
So we would agree that we're reading them the same way, because when I was reading them, I didn't see that either.
Yeah, nothing like that. We don't know, like the end of time stuff. It could occur 100 years from now, 200 years from now. We don't know.
Oh, sure. There could be a rock come around the sun right now, and in about 8 minutes, we're all going to be gone. So, yeah.
Thoughts,
yeah, I mean, hey.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, when it comes to the only thing that I can really think of things that might happen in the future that are claimed are the end time stuff, but it doesn't give a specific date on when that's going to happen. It's going to say, this is going to be happening, and this is going to be happening, and this is going to be happening. These multiple claims, and when you see all of these things happening together, you could say, okay, but that's the thing, is that people try and stretch what these things say? Like, for example, in the Christian belief, people try and stretch these things, and that's why some people would say, "Well, even
alcohol,
Jesus." Okay, good.
It's soda pops.
Okay, soda pop. All right. So yeah, like even in the Christian belief, that there's some people that believe that Jesus, when he said, "Some of you will not taste death before
Right,
heaven and earth have
right.
passed," that even Jesus thought that the end times were coming, sometime in these guys' lifetime, right after him.
So did Paul.
Yeah, exactly, things like that. But we don't have. I don't think we have.
He wasn't celibate. He wasn't celibate for nothing. Paul wasn't celibate for nothing. He was trying to be dedicated.
You got to be careful getting us Muslims started on Paul, because we'll go in on that.
I'm just saying that takes dedication. That takes dedication.
Yeah.
That takes dedication. All right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well,
any more questions? Because I want my brother Fareed to be able to go to bed and get some sleep.
Yeah. No, I'm like I say, you guys have been really cool, and like I say, we agreed on a lot of things, and so I just I'll look real quick and let somebody else come up. The only thing I know what I wanted to ask you was about the atheist question.
The atheist question.
You were talking about all the different atheists. Were you talking about like the Richard Dawkins scale of like strong to weak atheists? Or
no,
were you talking new atheists with the old atheists, or what did you mean about the different different types of atheists? Because I was saying, hey, atheist just means you don't believe, and you were like, no, there's all these different atheists. So I was just like,
there's a point in time, I think it was like 78, late 70s, early 80s, to where there was a guy by the name of Antony Flew, and he wrote a paper called The Presumption of Atheism, right? Prior to that paper, everyone had always understood atheists to be making the positive position that God does not exist. After he wrote that paper, The Presumption of Atheism, in that paper, he redefines what atheism means. He redefines the definition because he does not believe it's adequate for the atheist position to have a burden of proof. He says the atheist position should be defined as the lack of belief in God. And then thereafter, there was groups of people that started to use that definition. But even still today, so even still today, there are, like, for example, if you go on YouTube and you type in Dr. Graham Oppy and on atheism, he's an atheist philosopher, right? Atheist philosopher who has a 5-minute discussion that he had with Capturing Christianity on atheism and what it means to be an atheist. And he makes a statement stating that if an atheist came into a room and said that they were just a lack of belief, like, we're good here. Like, atheists in the philosophical field make that positive claim. It's logically impossible for any gods to exist. That is the traditional atheist position. So how I would define it as, in the middle, you have agnostic, one who does not take a position. Then right next to it, you have the non-theist, which is the one who does not believe in the positive claim, right? And then you have the theist, the one who makes the claim that God does exist, or the proposition of theism is God exists, right? Mm-hmm. And then on the other side, you have, that would be the non-theist, and then the atheist would be on that side, right? So you would have the non-theist and then the atheist that makes the positive position that God does not exist. On the other side, you would have the non-atheist, right? The one who lacks belief in the non-existence of God, which you would consider a agnostic theist, I think you would say. And then you have the theist who holds to the positive position that God does exist. And for me, that's very, very simple, is because you got the middle, you got the two lack of beliefs, and you got the two hard positions outside of that. And the way that we've always traditionally defined theism and atheism is not the psychological state of belief, but the actual position on the proposition itself. So God exists without God. God does not exist. That A at the beginning of theism is just without.
Right.
That's
you know, people will say I'm an atheist because of positions I say. And when I say gods do not exist, what I'm saying is the same thing as when I say Santa Claus doesn't exist or anything else, where you and I would agree that until I can have something that I think is demonstrable, even if it's not with my own eyes, they're just words that people use. You know, and it's the same, you know, a theist will say one God exists and another God doesn't exist. Well, then I can say those words, but that could change tomorrow, because I like to say, you know, that I accept reality for what it is, but that can change tomorrow. You give me new evidence, well, then my reality is going to change tomorrow. Mr. Spock lands in my front yard tomorrow, all of my reality is going to change, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, our minds are going to be blown, right?
Absolutely.
So, but yeah, okay, well, cool, man. Unless there's anything you got to ask me, I'll let you, you know, get to somebody else or whatever you want to do.
I think we had a pretty productive conversation. I got a couple people waiting in the back, so I'm going to be able to get them up. But I'd like to see you back again now that you've come on. I see you're in the chat. You're quite predominant in the chat. So I'd like to see you come up and speak with me more often if you can.
Well, to be honest, yeah, I run my mouth a lot, and so people were pressing me to start a channel. So a couple months ago, I started a channel. I've only got a couple of videos up, but I'm going to work on it now that, you know, winter's coming and stuff. So
gotcha.
Yeah, I'm
the
trying
more
to
you
put
come
my
up
money
here,
where my mouth is.
Yeah. The more you come up here, the more you can take some of these videos, as long as you don't edit and clip them out and do anything dishonest.
No. I would never do that. On my mother's eyes. No, but and like I said, and when I said you could always come on my channel, I didn't mean you had to come on my channel. I wasn't trying to play that or anything. It was just an open invitation back at you because you invited me on. You know, okay?
Sure, too easy. I'd love to come on your channel too.
All right, cool, brother.
We'll get that. If you want to email me at eadawa, eadawa@gmail.com, just go ahead, email me. We'll set something up. I'll put out a community post saying, "Hey, everybody, I'm going on Captive Desk." What's your channel called? Is it called Captive Desk?
Captive Desk.
Okay. So we'll put that out there.
That's an anagram for Skeptic Dave. But I figured
Skeptic Dave.
There's 1,000,001 Daves on YouTube. So
yeah.
There's
exactly. You don't want to get mixed up with Professor Dave, you know.
Well, and it kind of worked because I wanted to have a channel where I would talk to people like this, even if we don't agree, where we can just be cool and then say, "Hey, cool, man, let's talk again." And so I was glad it worked out that way.
Absolutely.
So yeah, anybody wants to ever talked about anything, get a hold of me over at Captive Desk. My email's on there somewhere in the thing there. But yeah, it's a work in progress. But yeah, go check it out. I got a couple of videos up there on miracles and talking to a guy that works in the Holy Land. It was pretty interesting.
Nice.
All right,
brother. I appreciate you.
Have a good night. All right, talk to you later.
Bye.